So, welcome everybody to this is the last joint session of the Maya Living Legacy lecture series and the Language Sciences Colloquium. And we have the honor of having Telma Khan Pixabaj here with us. I'd like to just thank everyone who sponsored this lecture series throughout the year. In addition to language sciences, contributions from the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies, LASIS, Plant and Agroecosystem Sciences, Science and Technology Studies, Spanish and Portuguese, Education Policy Studies, and Anthropology have helped make this great series possible. I put the link to the other talks in the series. There's a YouTube channel for the talks, and there's many different talks about Mayan history, Mayan culture, and Mayan languages that you can access there. So with that, it's really a pleasure to welcome Telma Khan Pixabaj uh, to this lecture series today. Telma obtained her PhD in linguistics from the University of Texas at Austin in 2015, and she's currently investigadora asociada at UNAM CIMSUR in San Cristobal de las Casas, Chiapas, Mexico. Telma's done extensive work on many different Mayan languages. Just a few highlights. It would take me a long time to list everything. Um, but she's done a lot of work on the clause structure of different varieties of Quiché, including her own native variety. She's written a descriptive grammar of another Quichean language, Uspanteco, and right now is currently working on the documentation project of mom-speaking communities in Chiapas, and she's going to tell us about that work today. So, join me in welcoming Telma. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation, Telma. Gracias, Matios, and I'll let you take it away.
Um, Thanks, Grant, for the introduction and for inviting me to this seminar. And also, my grateful goes to all the organizers. Thanks for all who are now in this session. My main purpose of this talk is to share my job with you this afternoon. Let's see. I would like to start with a phrase from Thomason and Kaufman, 1991, who state that the history of a language is based on the history of its speakers. And I think this is the case, especially of the communities that I work in Chiapas. I will first give some background information about the language and its speakers from both countries, Guatemala and Mexico, and then give some information about the study area, the communities where we are working together with other colleagues, and some relevant historical aspects. I will then talk a little bit about the level of language vitality, then the state of the grammar. And finally, I will provide some summary and some final remarks. Okay, the language and its speakers. Man belongs to the Mayan linguistic family. It is located in the eastern branch of the family tree and is closely related to Teco or Tectitec within the group, together with Awacatec and Ixil. In Guatemala, there are a little more than 500,000 speakers, and in Mexico, the number of speakers varies a lot, from 7,000 to 23,000. Perhaps I don't think it's, I mean, I don't know which one of the numbers is it's close to the number of speakers that actually exist. In Guatemala and Mexico, there is an established orthography. In 2003, in Guatemala, indigenous languages were recognized as official languages in their own region. That means that if speakers of the language require some public services, they could get those services in their own languages while they are in the region where the language is spoken. In the same year, in Mexico, indigenous languages were recognized as national languages, just like Spanish, and the languages spoken of the southern border were integrated. These include MAM. And I think this is actually the first time that these languages spoken on the border are mentioned officially. With regard to linguistic studies, we find a variety of materials on the MAM spoken in Guatemala, but they are limited on the Mexican side. So this is a Mayan family tree taken from Law 2017. So I'm not gonna explain the whole map, but I just wanna say that from the left, we have the Proto-Mayan language, and then one of the branches is the Eastern Mayan, and we have two other subgroups here, which is the Mayan and Quichean. So today I'm talking about the Mayan group, where we can see that there is Mam, Teco, or Tectiteco, Tectitec, that is known as Cachiquel for some reason in Chiapas, Ahuacatec, and Ixil. Just to give an idea how this looks, I'm providing here a Mesoamerican language map. We see here the orange part. It corresponds to the Mayan language family. And then we have part of it in Mexico. This is kind of big area, but then up we can see the Huastec language, which is also a Mayan language. To appreciate maybe better the distribution of Mayan languages, I have here another map from England, 1998, where we can see all Mayan languages. This part that cross the border between Guatemala and Mexico is the MAM language that I'm going to talk about today. Finally, the area that we are looking at is here marked with a little circle, so to have an idea where the communities are located. So regarding language variation, England and Corti 1986 have proposed 3 dialectal regions in Guatemala, which are West or Occidente, and North and South. So this is the MAM area in Guatemala. And it is actually more variation within the language, but they make these 3 classification mainly. So INALI 2015 states that there are 5 geostatistical variants in Chiapas: North, South, Sierra, Soconusco, and the border variant. So with this, we can kind of have an idea how the language is distributed in Mexico and Guatemala. although I'm not talking about all the places where the language is spoken in Mexico, but I think the communities in Chiapas are the significant ones and are the ones that I am taking into account. Okay, how about speakers? Speakers in Chiapas, among speakers in Chiapas based on INEGI 2000, 2005, and 2020. We can see in this chart that we have kind of different numbers. Some of them are very stable, I would say. So if we look at number 6, Unión Juárez, in 2000, there were reported 194 speakers, 193 in 2005, and 159 in 2020. But if we look at other places, the numbers vary a lot. So if we look at number 2, El Porvenir, there were reported 679 in 2000, 1,430 in 2005, and 269 in 2020. And there is a huge difference between the numbers from 2005 and the ones from 2020. We don't know exactly why that happened. So this is to see that actually the numbers vary a lot. And I think there are several reasons why this happens, but we are not looking to those reasons today. In Guatemala, I only provide the numbers from some communities, just right from the other side of the Mexican border. These are the municipalities of Tacaná, Sibinal, Tejutla, Tajumulco, San Jose, Ojetenam. And the numbers, I'm only adding the information from INE 2018, but the numbers are pretty stable, I would say. But if we can see, Tacaná is just, it doesn't have even 500 speakers, the same as Sibinal. And these are the communities just right on the border where we can see. So here is Tacaná and Sibinal, and Unión Juárez is on the other side. So it likes that the number of speakers actually has to do with kind of an areal issue more than whether the community belong to one country or another. However, I think there is a common reason that has caused that. Okay, so the area of study in 2017, along with other colleagues from SIMSUR, we made an exploratory trip to the Mayan area of Chiapas. Cacahuatán and Unión Juárez from the Soconusco area, and Motocintla, Mazapa de Madero, and El Porvenir from the Sierra area. In all places visited, we were told that there were more speakers. Also, we found some people and groups who work for the benefit of the language and culture. That is to say that people were promoting the use of the language and of some cultural practices. I here present some photographs from the places. This is Cacahuatán. And then Unión Juárez, with each up on the road to the Tacaná volcano. And this is from one community, Chiquihuites from Unión Juárez. And this one is from El Porvenir, which is from the Sierra area. Those are such beautiful places. Okay, so I think there are some historical aspects that are relevant to consider in this talk. So I have noticed some of them here. In 1924, the annexation of Chiapas to Mexico took place. In 1892, the boundaries were established. Before that, whereas there was a very blurred border. It was until the 1930s when Guatemalans began to legally settle in Chiapas. In 1934, the Initiative for Integration or Mexicanization was given through a government decree based on Monterrosa. The purpose of this decree was to erase the indigenous identity at all. And some other authors have talked about this, like Gutierrez and Hernandez 2000. So from that period, if we can say that, people were going back and forth between Guatemala and Mexico, Chiapas. So at some extent, all these rules affected people, even they were living on the Guatemalan side at some point. Okay, so after looking to those places and those aspects, we started conducting some research projects. And the first one began at the end of 2019, and it ended in 2023. And it was designed to explore the grammar of the language in Unión Juárez. In 2019, we started a small group project about biocultural vocabulary. We had another group project from 2020 to 2022, and in 2020, we also participated in another one to develop some materials to teach the language. I will not have time to give the details of each of these projects, but I would like to mention that each one has contributed to the understanding of the situation in Chiapas. Just to give an idea of the distances and the places where we work, I have this little map here. San Cristobal de las Casas is here up on the right. San Cristobal de las Casas, to Unión Juárez, there is about 476 kilometers, and that will take about 7 hours by car. So there are two ways to get to Unión Juárez. We can take the road on the right, pass by Frontera Comalapa, get to Motocintla, Tapachula, and then go up to Unión Juárez. That would take more time. The other way is going to the left to Tuxtla Gutiérrez first, and then to take the federal highway to get to Tapachula, and then to Unión Juárez. From Unión Juárez, which is a Mexican municipality, to Sibinal or Tacaná from Guatemala, it can actually take 3 to 4 hours by car, but it would take only 2 hours going first by car and then on foot. So it's closer than going by car. So we started these projects, and our main focus was to document the use of the language in all possible contexts. Since we have reviewed that there would be many speakers of the language, 1,000. Indeed, we kind of assumed that there would be those speakers, and so we wanted to go there and document the use of the language. So we visited people from the communities. We had conversation with them about a variety of topics. We had meetings and we took walks around the town with them. We elicited words and phrases. We had help and support from speakers, local authorities, and a couple of local institutions. These are some pictures of our meetings and with the speakers of the language. This, I think it was our first approach to the group in Unión Juárez at Don Hermelindo's house. Here we were working on vocabulary with Don Hermelindo, Don Nicolás, and Doña Adela. And these are pictures from basket manufacturing that we documented with 2 speakers of the language. One of them still remembers some words, but they were not able to tell us the whole process in MAM, but in Spanish. And these other pictures are from a workshop that we had in Unión Juárez, where we had 15 young people willing to learn the language. And this is from Mazapa de Madero, the other community. It was from a workshop as well. And people here are speakers of the language that they want to know more about the grammar. So this was a workshop about the grammar of MAM. We were creating some materials with them, and we were recording as well. So what we observed from those field trip is that people do not speak MAM anywhere, like on the streets, on the market, church, school, etc. At meetings, people sometimes greeted each other in MAM, but then conversation took place in Spanish. It was possible to obtain basic vocabulary, but it was hard to get specialized ones. Likewise, it was not difficult to obtain simple sentences, but complex ones was really difficult. People told us that their dominant language was Spanish and that they do not or usually not use MAM at home, although later they said that, yeah, maybe sometimes they use the language with some family members or some friends that they know speak the language. We tried to record anecdotes and short stories, but we obtained little material of this type with very few exceptions. From these initial approaches and work, we began to realize that the situation of the language wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to find speakers, and the language was basically in disuse. The meetings were opportunities for the speaker to recall words and expression, ask questions, and talk each other. This way, we match up to their writing. We have a 3 days workshops in Unión Juárez, and there were 20 people taking it, 15 of which were young people that do not speak the language, but they wanted to learn the language. And that was very, very interesting. Some speakers indicated that the use of the language, they use the language sporadically with a friend or family member, as just said. In Tapachula, there are bilingual schools where actually, as far as we understood, there weren't bilingual teachers in Spanish and MAM. And so one of the our collaborators was going to those schools and teach some lessons sometimes, or once or twice a week. There are some radio programs in the language. There are cultural centers can also offer language teaching. Those are the ones that are called Casa de la Cultura. So we identified 33 speakers of the language, 21 in total. There are some men and women, but if you can see, we worked mainly with men, and that's the way it happened. I think there are more things to discover why that happened. And we only found 3 women in Soconusco and 4 in Sierra. So now that we have that information, we could move to language vitality. Then if we have all those inputs, what would we say about language vitality? So UNESCO 2003 suggests a series of considerations to assess the vitality of languages. So we have intergenerational language transmission, absolute number of speakers, proportion of speakers in the population as a whole, changes in the areas of language use, response to new areas and media, availability of materials for learning and teaching the language, attitude and policies. So starting with the first one, intergenerational language transmission, we observed during fieldwork trips that no children speakers of the language are in the communities. We didn't observe them. I think INEGI reports some children over than 5 years that speak the language, but we didn't find them, or we just couldn't observe that. People confirm that new generation are not learning the language. It was also observed in a workshop that there are young people interested in learning the language, which is very positive, I think. So with regard to absolute number of speakers, there are identified towns where there are speakers of the language. So that's why we can use this map showing where there are speakers of the language. However, it is unknown how many speakers the language has. About the proportion of speakers in the population as a whole, it is unknown how many speakers the language has in relation to the total population. It is supposed that the percentage of speakers is very low. And here I will take an example. For instance, in Unión Juárez, there were 14,089 inhabitants in 2010, and only 805, which is 6% of the total, belong to the Mam ethno-linguistic group. So this is not the same as being a speaker of the language, as you may know. So again, I take this chart just to show that in Unión Juárez, there are about 200 speakers, and the population is about 14,000. So speakers would be just 1% of the whole population. And this is a very low number. With regard to trends in existing language domain, we consider that the MAM in this area is it has a limited domain because it is used in limited context and is used by very few speakers. Response to new domains and media, I think it has the it's minimal. The language is used only in a few domains. Yeah, we mentioned the radio programs. There is a keyboard in MAM, and we sometimes observe that some habitants used Facebook and were circulating some information in MAM and use TikTok, but they are not producing the information. They find them and they share them. And I don't know whether there are more than those that I'm mentioning, but basically that's what we observe in the communities. Regarding availability of materials for learning and teaching the language, a practical orthography is known to the community. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is a practical orthography in both countries, and this is known for some of the speakers. There are some materials for consultation. Although there aren't many or almost none materials produced in Chiapas about MAM, there are many on the Guatemalan side. So speakers from Chiapas, when come to Guatemala, they would take with them some materials in MAM. And here I would like to mention that there have been some activities coordinated by those speakers with Colimam, Comunidad Lingüística MAM, and also part of the Academia de Lenguas Mayas de Guatemala. I think they are, I don't know if it's a common practice, but what I observed from 2017 to 2023 is that sometimes they would coordinate some activities. There is no program of literacy. Sometimes people do some workshop or things like that, but it's not systematic. Speaker and especially children are not exposed to the written form of the language at school. There has been a strong governmental policy against indigenous languages and cultures in Chiapas. So they were prohibited in all contexts, language and expressions of culture. Since 2003, with the recognition of indigenous languages as national languages, the situation has changed a little, I think. There's been support from speakers of Amerindian languages. Speakers from towns we have worked in have interested in revitalize their language or learn the language. Now speakers can use their own language if they want to, and they are not punished in public anymore. But it was not the case in the past. With those few positive actions, we would say, speakers see their language as a positive asset now. And by speakers, I mean the elder ones. Elder speakers support language maintenance, and some young ones have begun to take an interest in learning the language, as we observed during the workshop in Unión Juárez. Okay, so the last part of this presentation has to do with the simplification of the grammar. I will not give much detail about this. I would only like to mention that we have observed this in two aspects, the lexicon and phonology. So I just want to give an example for animal names. For instance, ipoy, poi, it has many pronunciations, which would be armadillo. People also use that word to refer to whistle or comadreja in Spanish. So it's like some words are being generalized for others of the same type, or if they are similar in some way. And this, I think it has to do with what Nettle says about the loss of a language, which once get lost first. And I think the generalization of some lexicon is one of them. Phonology. MAM has 27 consonant and 5 vowels in both orthographies. However, we also found long vowels, I think almost in all the places we worked. There are 27 consonants, although I think in some places there is 1 or 2 more that are being developed. For today, I only want to mention that one of the changes I have found is that some retroflex sounds get merged with post-alveolar ones. So the sound, the retroflex affricate tra gets merged with cha. Tra with cha and ra with sha. So do we have time, Grant, to play these words?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we do.
I just wanted to share a little so that you have an idea how these words sound. So let's listen to some of them.
Chop, 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 chew, chop, chew, chop, chew. Chop, chop, chop. Much, much, much. Trunk, trunk, trunk. Chew, 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 chew. Chop.
Okay. I want to move to the next page. It doesn't let me to move.
Much, chop, much.
Doesn't allow me to move further. I guess I have to close this and then.
Yeah, if you share again, maybe we can just pick it up on the slide after.
Okay. All right. It doesn't respond. Okay. Can you share the presentation, please?
Yeah, I can share the one I have.
Thank you.
I'm gonna look. We were right. Do you want to play a few more sounds, or do you want me to
No,
just?
we
Okay,
can move to the next
just
one.
okay. Uh, let me. There we go.
Mm-hmm. Okay, can we look at the one before that?
Hmm.
All right. So here these examples are meant to show the variation between two sounds. Like in 14, we have choch with the retroflex and choch with the post-alveolar sound. This was produced by the same speaker of the language. And the same thing goes for 19 and 16. Next one, please. All right, so what we have seen is that Mam speakers in Chiapas are product of migration. So they started to move from Guatemala to Chiapas back and forth since many years ago. They were forbidden to use the language and were forced to give up their identity. Those aspects have negative impact on the life of the language. It is known the number of speakers. It is unknown the number of speakers of the language. The language is used in very limited context by a few, very few part of the population. Also, the disuse of the language can be reflected in the simplification of some aspects of the grammar, causing linguistic change. And linguistic change is not bad itself. What I wanna highlight here is that this is an example of a linguistic change where those changes are product of the disuse of the language. Something very important and relevant is that there are young people interested in learning the language. But this is not enough, right? Some of the existing governmental and institutional initiatives need to be put into practice. So I have mentioned that from 2003, we have this law that recognizes indigenous languages, but that is not enough. We need to do something more than that. And what that I mean that it is needed to put in practice all those initiatives. So I have here some references, and I would very like to close this presentation to express my gratitude to all the speakers that collaborated with us in all those communities, to my compañeros, colleagues from Simsur UNAM, some colleagues and friends from Colimam and ALMG, some institutions, and thanks for all of you for being here. Chonte. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Telma. So we have time for questions or comments for Telma. So you can either unmute your microphone or raise your hand, whatever's easier for you. Eddie?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. How would that be en español? So, okay.
Como
Oh,
quieras.
However you, yes.
okay. Bueno, estaba pensando esto del el cambio lingüístico. Es una parte que estoy considerando en mi disertación y Pues gracias por explicar todo esto que me ha enseñado mucho. Gracias por compartir todo lo que han trabajado. Y me gustó mucho la presentación. Hablando de esto, estaba un poco más curioso sobre el cambio lingüístico en lo léxico, estas generalizaciones que hay, ¿a qué creas que se debe esta generalización, además del uso? ¿Crees que hay otra influencia ahí? ¿Y cuál puede ser?
Sí,
Ujú.
muchas gracias, Edbert.
Sí.
Sí, creo que realmente nos ha tomado mucho tiempo como pensar en todas las posibles causas de cambios y de esta situación que hemos notado. Eh, Primero, como dije, al inicio pensamos, bueno, la lengua en estos lugares está siendo desplazado muy fuertemente. em, y por eso ya no hay hablantes jóvenes y ya no está siendo transmitido intergeneracionalmente. Sin embargo, vimos las comunidades cercanas al otro lado de la frontera, en Guatemala, que también están en la misma situación. Entonces, esto parece ser una situación areal y es del MAM occidental. Ahora, los hablantes que han migrado especialmente al Soconusco son de esos lugares del MAM occidental, principalmente. Pueden venir de otros lados, pero de allá. Así que pueden haber como causas muy similares. Sin embargo, también pueden haber causas más fuertes en México. O sea, en Guatemala yo creo que ha afectado muchas otras cosas, las normales que afecta el abandono de uso de una lengua indígena. Pero en México creo que las medidas fueron mucho más rigurosas. Esto ha causado, por un lado, el no uso de la lengua. Y claro, esto lo que provoca es como perder esos detalles de diferencias, y esto lo vemos en el libro de Nettle, que dice que se pierden muchos detalles primero, o sea, se van perdiendo muchos detalles, y luego se van como cruzando los significados. Y con esto de la generalización del nombre de animales, creo que en parte tiene que ver con el desuso de la lengua, pero creo que como en muchos otros lados tiene que ver con de repente la disminución de esa relación con la naturaleza. em, y también ya un desconocimiento de alguna manera general de muchas cosas. Entonces yo creo que no es solo el desuso de la lengua, sino también tiene que ver con otros procesos comunes, digamos, en otras lenguas que, aunque estén muy vivas, yo creo que se están perdiendo en ciertos contextos. Ahora, lo cierto aquí es que creo que la lengua se va perdiendo también en ciertos contextos y yo creo que en la vida cotidiana, creo que tal vez es lo último que se pierde en el ambiente familiar, pero en el trabajo, en muchas otras cosas, eso, se va perdiendo. Entonces, en parte sí, pero también hay otras razones externas. Mm, Gracias por tu pregunta.
Bien, gracias. More questions. Otras preguntas. Joe.
Thank you very much. This was really an extremely interesting talk, and I learned a lot. My question is a little bit related to the last one, but a different aspect of it. Um, uh, when there's a lot of movement of populations, you have mixing of dialects and dialectal change as different languages and dialects come together. You kind of touched on that a little bit, but I wonder if you could say a little bit more about it.
Okay, thank you. Ya. Mm, mm, My proposal is that the mom spoken in the Soconusco area is the same dialect, is the Western dialect. And we can see that they share vocabulary and some variations. So phonological variation will be the same in those places. However, the mom spoken in the Sierra area, it's a little different and more complex from my point of view. That is because the speakers that arrive to those places come from so many different places from Guatemala. And so there is a mix of dialects. Speakers recognize the towns where others come from, but I think something very interesting here is that in a positive way, they say this form, it comes from, I don't know, San Pedro Necta, which is a town from Guatemala, or Ixtahuacan. They recognize those forms, but they understand it. And I think there is kind of some negative attitude to those, but not as strong as in the past, at least in Guatemala. And I think that's because they need the materials and they wanna have like this community, not separate each other so that they can actually work together. And that's really positive. Thanks for your question.
Thank you so much.
More questions, comments? Then I had a kind of a related question just about in the communities. Do they maintain contact with communities in Guatemala from which they migrated? So are there like familial ties that like bind certain people in, say, Union Juarez with people that are also part of mom-speaking communities on the other side of the border? And do they travel to like for festivals or for familial reasons? And does that help with language maintenance at all? That was my
Thanks.
question.
Yeah. What we heard about that is that people from Unión Juárez were established so many years ago. Some of them still have some mainly friends, I think, or some relatives in Guatemala. So they come to Guatemala and for some reasons, also they take some products from Guatemala to sell in Mexico. So they still come, and one of them, Don Hermelindo, usually, I don't know whether he was, he had like a trip a month or so, but interestingly, he will come and get some materials written in the language, go back with them, and also he was doing kind of field work. And so he would have a vocabulary that he needs to know, have that, come to Sibinal, stay there with some friends, get the vocabulary and go back to Mexico and share those materials with other speakers. So that's kind of the situation in Unión Juárez, in the Sierra area. I think people come more frequently to Guate. So they have family there still. So they come, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have found more speakers in the Sierra area than in the Soconusco area. So yeah, I think it helps that kind of communication to maintain the language. But there are other places that we couldn't conduct field work, like Pavencul, where the complete families migrated. So they maintain the language, they use the language, but this is a very isolated community and it's really hard to get there. And so I think we haven't been there. I mean, I haven't been there. But I guess if you go there, you will find more speakers of the language. And so yeah, the kind of if they still have communication with other people from Guatemala, then that will help for sure. Thanks.
There are some questions and comments in the chat. I don't know if you'll be able to respond to them quickly. We don't have too much more time, but I can read one from Balam. ¿Crees que aún es posible rescatar la lengua si solo quedan algunos hablantes mayores que ya no tienen conversaciones extensas y fluidez?
Sí, gracias. Sí, yo creo que sí es posible rescatar la lengua. El nivel de vitalidad de la lengua estaría entre casi perdido, pero aún no. Y creo que una de las razones del por qué sí se puede es que todavía hay algunos hablantes que solo necesitan como reactivar la lengua, tener mucha práctica para poder reactivarla. Hay muchos hablantes en otros lados, especialmente en Guatemala. Hay muchos materiales, así que yo creo que sí puede sí hay posibilidad de rescatar la lengua. Y yo creo que hay grupos comunitarios interesados en eso y que ya están haciendo un poco de trabajo. Sin embargo, se necesita como algo mucho más sistemático. No hay un modelo. Yo creo que hay varios modelos, posibles modelos, y quisiera mencionar aquí el caso Pocomam, una lengua maya hablada en Guatemala, que se daba casi por muerta. Sin embargo, pues se hicieron muchas acciones y se rescataron. Y eso es lo más cercano, digamos, pero ha pasado con el hebreo y con muchas otras lenguas, así que posibilidades hay y creo que para eso nos sirve hacer documentación lingüística.
Bien. Y una pregunta más. Hay un comentario después que puedes leer, pero la pregunta es de Josué Martín Villalobos, y es, los mames de Soconusco dijeron por ellos mismos que emigraron de Guatemala. Y luego creo que hay un contexto histórico en el comentario que podemos leer y no quiero quitar mucho tiempo leyendo el comentario.
Perfecto. Bueno, en términos generales, yo creo que con las personas que hemos trabajado, muchas de ellas, por ejemplo, siempre tal vez el ya más grande de ellos indica que sus abuelos vinieron de Guatemala. Entonces ellos mismos ya no nacieron en Guatemala, pero sí son productos de una migración en ese sentido. Y yo creo que hay mucho material que se ha escrito al respecto y creo que en algunos casos no hay tanta seguridad de que todos los mames que están ahorita en Chiapas sean producto de la migración. Y yo creo que aquí valdría valerse en mucha cuestión histórica, porque antes no había una frontera delimitada específicamente. Y todo eso era, pues, Ariamán. ¿Por qué? Porque la gente este, circulaba en esa área, pero no había un límite geográfico. Y después de que hubo, pues empezó toda la discusión, pero sí, estoy de acuerdo, yo creo que no puede como generalizarse de que todos son producto de la migración. Gracias por el comentario.
Well, with that, we have reached the end of the presentation. Thanks to everyone for your questions. Muchas gracias por las preguntas y los comentarios. Telma, thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. This was great. Everyone learned a lot. Thank you for attending. And this is the last linguistics lecture of the series, so I think it's a good note to end on for the series.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yes. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.